Participants, please do wait. We'll be starting shortly. And by that time, get all your friends to join the voice chat as soon as possible. Good evening to one and all. Welcome to init.d for Samizi's orientation session. Hanna and myself, Megha, will be the MCs for the event. So, today we'll be having two speakers, Kavya Manohar and Abraham Raji, who will share their expertise on FOSS with us. And along with that, we have also planned a fun-filled event in between. Let us delve into the world of open source together.
This might be your first event on Telegram, right? Wondering why Telegram? Because it is a free and open source software and its new update has provided with a whole lot of new features.
So, what exactly is free and open source software? It is a software for which the source code can be freely shared with anyone and for any purpose.
Free in free and open source software does not refer to money, it refers to freedom.
And FOSS MEC aims to promote and encourage the use of FOSS in MEC by fostering discussions and encouraging the adoption of FOSS softwares.
Before we start off with our first speaker, Varun, would you like to elaborate more on FOSS?
Thanks, Anna. I'm allowed to do that. So, FOSS is about free and open source software, right? So, it has core freedoms associated with it. So, access to source code is a precondition for a software to be open source and free, be it like to be either an open source software or a free software. So, I believe that the freedom to have access to a particular source code is very important, especially when you take into account several life critical systems such as like automobiles or healthcare systems. Most of these systems currently are run on proprietary software. And the fact that you don't even know what runs through your body or what devices or helping with medical procedures or helping you run the car is very scary. And I feel that force is very important and it liberates us just like how knowledge liberates us. Mohita and Mal, do you have something to add on?
Mohita, if you have something to add, you can do so.
Yep. So I'm Mohita, the chairperson of Force MEC. And so in the next few months, I hope that we can create like a community where we can talk about how to use and modify open source software in our daily lives. And I want as many people as possible in this community, regardless of your gender or what branch you're in. In fact, I'm an EC and I still mess around with open source software. So to find out how to join us, make sure you guys stay till the very end, okay? The MCs will tell you how to join. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Mohita. Now let's get started with the proceedings for the day. We have first speaker, Kavya Manohar. Kavya is a researcher at CET in the area of automatic speech recognition, and she is involved in various open projects on Malayalam language computing and has done open type engineering for a couple of accounts maintained by Swabandra Malayalam Computing. So let's start with the session. Over to you, Kavya.
Hello everyone. Hi. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yes,
Okay,
you're
thank you.
audible.
Okay. So good evening everyone, and thanks team Force MEC for inviting me to have an opportunity to interact with you all. And I hope this is planned as an introductory session on Force. And I planned this session to be bilingual or with occasional switches between Malayalam and English. Hope that is fine. Is that all right?
Yes, that's completely fine.
Okay, thank you. So, as you have already mentioned in the introduction part, the F free in free and open source software is not about money. It's about the freedom. It's the liberty. How it liberates you, and we will be focusing on what makes Force relevant to us students or researchers like me. It has got many advantages and many perspectives on Force can be taken. But currently in this session, I would like to focus on how it is relevant for students, as learners, as how can you use Force softwares for learning, and how is it relevant to you in building a portfolio for yourself, and so on. So to begin with, we are all in the era of pandemic for the past 1.5 years, and all of you might be learning your engineering course mostly in a remote manner, and most probably your job opportunities might also be of that sort. And in this scenario, you all will be depending on some computing devices for learning, and along with that, you will be depending on many software platforms. Softwares, you will be using different softwares for communication, for learning, and documentation, etc. As I have mentioned earlier regarding Telegram, the source code is available for free, and it's open. The source code is open, and it's such a platform. At the same time, you use platforms like Gmail by Google, Google Drive, etc. You use Google Drive and Gmail for free. Of course, there are options for paid features, but most of us use it for free. But that free doesn't make it free software. But Telegram, on the other hand, is free because free software because it provides you some freedom. So, what are those freedoms? As mentioned earlier, the four important freedoms the free and open source softwares provide us are the freedom to use the software, the freedom to learn, understand the source code, and see the source code, learn and understand from it. And the third freedom is all about your freedom to modify the source code if you want and use the modified version of the software. And even you have got the freedom to redistribute the modified software. A non-free software doesn't give you all this. You do not know how Google handles the Gmail, its server, its backend. We do not know such things. They're not open. But on the other hand, if a software is open, you know how the thing works. You know, you have access to the source code of the software. So as students, the most important freedom that free software provides us is the freedom it provides us regarding the openness of that source code. It's available for you to see, learn, understand, and even modify it without any legal problems. When you reshare the modified software, there may be license restrictions, or maybe there are legal definitions for how can you share. Not going into that, but as a learner, you have the opportunity to see the software and learn it. So when it comes to academic curriculum, you may be from computer science or related branches. I'm personally from electronics and communication engineering branch. So whatever it be, all the engineers now should have access to some programming capabilities. For some simulations or whatever it be, you will need to do some kind of programming, and it has become an essential part of engineering, whether it is you are from computer science branch or otherwise. So since there was a few moments of mute. Okay. Okay, back to the talk. When it comes to academic syllabus, you learn a lot about the fundamentals of computer science, a lot of software engineering principles. But when it comes to your opportunity to see what is happening in a software industry, SFOS provides you a solution. That is, you as a student have opportunity to see what is the development process of a software by observing a repository, source code repository of any free and open source software. So such source codes are excellent way for you to understand how things are happening in the industry. You can see how the developers work on different issues or bugs being reported, and the different steps and procedures taken on that can be seen live in such repositories. When it comes to very complicated projects with very complicated functionalities, you can see how the engineers or software developers modularize different functionalities, how the modules are connected together to form the final product, how are these being tested, what are the minimum tests to be passed for a software to be out, etc. So you can watch the live production workflow of a good quality software with large user base without any restriction, and that practically empowers you when you move forward to the job market. So what you having access.
Sorry.
Excuse me.
Your video.
Hello.
Oh, sorry to interrupt.
Hello.
Hello. Sorry to
Megha?
interrupt, but your video is off.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Hope you can see me now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So let's continue. So when the FOSS software repositories are out there, you just need to have a curious mind to explore and learn how the software is working and its development process as well. Okay. So you might be having, for the beginners, there might be a doubt like when you install a software, we do not practically have the access to the source code on a computer by just installing it. That's true. The source code of softwares are not always available to us on our local computer when we install a software. Instead, the software projects, free software projects, have the source code made available in their respective source code repositories. And there are different platforms that serves as software repositories, which you might have sometimes heard of, like platforms like GitHub, GitLab, SourceForge, etc. So on such platforms, the software developers host their source codes. And in such platforms, it is not just the current version of the source code, but all the versions and uh, and the version history of the software can be seen in such platforms. So that's how the software repositories are the source from which you read and understand the source code. Okay, so that's how that's all about learning part. Now, next comes how can you contribute to a free software. So one option is, first of all, before you begin contributing, you must be able to use that software. For example, we are all using Telegram now. Telegram will have its source code repository hosted somewhere. And if you're finding, while we are using it, if you find some bugs, so if you feel that when a large number of users are added to a particular channel, the video quality is getting interrupted or something like that, then you can report that issue, that bug, as an issue in the source code repository. So reporting a bug in the source code is practically a software contribution. It's actually an important part in the software development life cycle. Identifying a bug and reporting it. So a user of a free software who finds an issue can file a bug in the repository. What else can be done? If you think certain buttons in the user interface is to be adjusted, it should have some more bigger size. Then of course you can file it. It may not be a bug, but you can add it as a feature request in the source code repository. So requesting for features, reporting bugs are very relevant contributions to FOSS, because it's only by addressing those issues the software is getting better day by day. So it's practically a kind of collaborative work where you improve the software by addressing the issues reported on the repository. So reporting bugs and features is one part. Next, what can you do? So as a user, you can report bugs. But if you're a bit more advanced user who has capabilities to find the issue actually in the source code and able to resolve that issue by editing the source code, then you can do that even. You may not have right permission on such repositories, which if the software is not developed by you, you may not have direct right permission. In such situations, if you know the solution, you can create a copy of that repository. There are technical terms for all this, but I think some of you may be new to this field, so I'm not using the terms right now. It's technically referred as forking a repository. You're taking a copy of the repository and later you work on that on your own pace, make the modification, and if you finally feel that your edit in the software fixed the bug, then of course you can use the modified software on the one hand, or there are other options. You have the code for modified software in your hand. In that case, you can contact the original software source code repository and inform that an updated version where this bug is fixed is with me. If you're interested and you think it right, you can take it from there. And technically, that process is called a pull request. If the original developers of that software accepts that solution, and of course, your modified or edited version will be part of the original source code repository. And practically, you have become a developer to that software. So something which you are interested in, you found a bug, you rectified it, and your contribution is now part of the actual software. So that's the cycle, how you can contribute to the software. So it's practically an empowering act because you got access, you got the right to edit, and you can contribute back to the software which you use. And now it's going to benefit a lot of others who are using the software. Okay, so that's about FOSS contributions. Now, regarding how to make a portfolio by contributing to FOSS. As I mentioned in this whole session, you have access to the source code and you know how to edit, and you do that all on some source code repositories. You might be familiar with those platforms like GitLab or GitHub, where you can create an account. So if you have an account, you can go and watch the popular free software repositories, the software repositories you are interested in, watch those changes. At the same time, you can report the bugs or features as we mentioned earlier. Also, you can publish your works on those platforms itself. It may not be popular free software you are contributing, but you can make all your personal projects. You might be doing your projects as part of your beta curriculum. So you can make those projects made available in such platforms where others can see it. So once you're participating in the free software development process through such platforms, your profile is automatically getting built up. Your code and your contributions speak for you, just like your curriculum meeting. So that's how the portfolio building is happening automatically when you are working on free software. You need not mention it as a single sentence. Your code is available for anyone to read and it speaks for you. So that's how, as a student, you can FOSS is relevant to you all, and how you build a profile based on that. Now, speaking personally, I'm a researcher. I'm a researcher in the field of automatic speech recognition for Malayalam language. So automatic speech recognition is practically the thing of converting speech to text. The converting speech to text is a technology that works very well for English. And there are big players like Google and Facebook, where they invest a lot of money for machine learning, training, etc., collecting data, etc. But when it comes to regional languages other than English, the quality is not that up to the mark. So here we have an opportunity of using our locally relevant knowledge of the language Malayalam and applying it to the field of automatic speech recognition. So while I am working on it, I am not starting from the scratch. Even though the work by Facebook or Google are not fully open sourced, some modules of it are already available as open source software, but not all. So the academic community around the world have built software stack for automatic speech recognition, training, testing, etc. So what I am doing is working on a module that fits best for Malayalam and trying to fit it into this stack of tools. So basically, I need not do from the scratch, but I can stand on the shoulders of already available software stack and improve upon it to make locally relevant software, which would be benefiting me and the people around me, the society around me. So that's how, as a researcher, I have felt. And while working on it, I try to make sure my code is available in public, so that if someone wants to improve upon it, they need not start from the scratch. We need not reinvent the wheel, as they say it. You can build on top of that. And that makes the force the best thing to do when you are a student or researcher or whatever it is. So that's it. Then before my contributions to the phonetic analysis of Malayalam, which I am using in my automatic speech recognition, I have been working on certain aspects of Malayalam phones as part of the community, Swatantra Malayalam Computing. Some of you might have heard of it. If not, you can check out the GitHub and GitLab pages of Swatantra Malayalam Computing, or SMC, where there are developers who develop typing tools, then various language technology resources, and are made available as free software. So you can, as students, you can go through the software repositories of different projects like this and see what's happening. Try if you can use some of them, and while you see and use it, you may find some bugs, you may have ideas to improve them, and then try to scratch them and get a feel of what's going on. All our contributions may not be very much valid in all respects. Some of them may be just simple typo corrections, etc. But everything is a valid free software contribution itself. And another area where you can contribute to free software is in its documentation, because documentation is a very important part of using software. As a user, when you use something, if you stumble upon it and you don't know how to proceed, you may refer to the documentation. And if the documentation is incomplete and you know how to improve it, in such cases, instead of contributing to the code, you can even contribute to the documentation as well. All these are relevant free software contributions. I think that's all I have to tell you as an introductory speaker to the session. So muting as of now, and you can ask me any questions if you have.
Thank you, ma'am. That was very informative. And I hope the participants too enjoyed it as much as I did. And to the participants, if you have any questions for ma'am, you can put in the chat. Does anybody have any question, or can we move on?
I think we can move on.
Okay, so let's move on with the next part. Next is a fun gaming session. Over to you, Anita.
Okay, thank you, Hannah, and thank you, Mecca, for the support. Thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, so let me leave and you may proceed. And all the best for the program.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you, Megha. Hey everyone, all are excited for this gaming session. So why wait? Head on to www.kahoot.in and enter this game pin. I've also put the game pin in the group. People, join fast. I repeat the game pin 564153. It's really going to be an interesting quiz. I'm pretty sure you'll get to know many things about Fox and open sourceware. So please join, people. Look, it's good. Many of your friends have already joined, so people join. I'm going to start the quiz in next few minutes. Anyone else? If not, I'm going to start. Cool. So I'm going to start. Hope all have joined. And your first question comes in 3, 2, 1, go. Here's your first question. The program that generates ASCII art picture of a cow with message. People think it's a cow with a message. I think it's pretty clear from the options. Very good, yes, you are first. Come on, people, everyone. So here comes your second question. Identify the mascot. Read the clue a bit carefully. You'll get your answer there. Your time's going faster. Yes, people. Whoa, 12 people with correct answer. That's cool. AJ, whoa. AJ came up. Whoa, cool. Here comes your next question. Identify X and Y, not the X and Y in the math problem. Time's up. The answer is X is PLC and Y is traffic cones. Here comes your next the leaderboard first. AJ is keeping the place. That's cool. Come on, people. Where are you? Come on. The next question. Identify the package. Oh, that's really cute, cat. Look into the cat carefully. You'll find the answer. That's nice. Here comes the leaderboard. AJ is keeping the place. Oh, that's cool. Here comes your next question, and it's a true or false question. And the answer is true. Open source software can be used as a commercial purpose.
That's good. VS is keeping up its position. And even AJ. That's cool. Here's the next question. The question should be read carefully. Which of the following is not an open source software? I repeat, it's not an open source software. That's nice. Oh, AJ is still leading. Here comes your next question. Identify the logo. This one I see it's pretty difficult one. Oh, that's nice. 6 of them got it correct. That's cool. Oh, VS took the place. VS came to first. We have the next question here. Find X. Your time's going on. Nobody gave the correct answer. I know that was totally unexpected option, but still cool. Here we go to the second last question. Open source alternative for Photoshop. That's nice. VS maintaining the position and people are going up and down. That's cool. Here comes your final question. I know this question is pretty tough one. But give your guesses. Who knows, your guesses may turn into correct answers. Okay, we are at the end of the question and questions, and here is the podium. The second runner-up goes to Krish. The first runner-up is DS, and the winner is VS. Congrats to the winners and the participants. Hope you all enriched your knowledge base with this quiz. Over to Megha and Hannah. Thank you, people.
Now we have reached the last part of init.d. We have with us Abraham Reggie. He is known in the community for his contributions to Debian GNU Linux and FSCA, and as head of Student Developer Society. He was also the part of the organizing team of Mini.conf India 2021. He'll elaborate more on the topic, does post make sense? I'll let you take over from here, Abraham.
All right. I'll just present myself. All right. Okay, is my screen visible?
Yeah, it is.
All right, let's start. Okay, so as you all know, my name is Abraham Raji. Software pays my bills. I write software for a living, and those are the things that I usually write. And I like old things. So here we're gonna go retro and go full on text-based things. So to set up ground rules, all right? So feel free to interrupt me at any point. I don't feel like it's really helpful for you to sit and listen to me for like 30 minutes or so, and and me going out of the day without knowing whether you guys got anything from what I said or not. So like at any point you have something you want to ask, you think I'm saying something wrong, or probably you have something to add, just feel free to interrupt me. That's fine. It's fine. So then no doubts are stupid, all right? I mean, see, not knowing things, it's something basic to human beings. We are not gods, all right? So like having doubt, something that's understandable. uh, so like if you have a doubt, and you don't have to get worried about, you don't have to be sorry for not knowing things, right? So like if you have a doubt, it's not stupid, it's natural. Feel free to ask. Now, uh, okay, before that, മലയാളം വേണോ അതോ നമുക്ക് ഇംഗ്ലീഷിൽ തന്നെ പോണോ, എങ്ങനെയാ, ആരെങ്കിലും ഒന്ന് പറയാമോ? Because I'm comfortable with both, all right? But like whatever, what do you guys prefer? Hello.
I guess they are comfortable with both too.
Right. All right. Okay. Let's just do it. Fine. Yeah. So yeah. So the matter of the fact is that you, I'm not trying to convince you of anything, right? The whole point of this whole thing is for me to like provide you with a perspective, right? And it doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree with me at the end of the day, but it is important that you understand what I say, and that's all that matters here. And and again, to add a few things, I am biased towards a lot of things. I'm biased towards freedom. I'm biased towards having control of your own life. I'm biased towards human rights. Those are known biases that I have, right? And like even if it's a funeral, if you come to me and whisper me that yeah, software freedom doesn't matter, I'll probably whisper back my rebuttal. I wouldn't probably care that it's a funeral. So yeah, I have strong biases. I'm a person with strong biases and opinions, and you should probably listen to me with that in mind. And if you think, if like I said in the beginning, if you think that what I said is wrong, feel free to correct me. Feel free to engage. Right? That's totally fine. All right, let's move forward. All right. Uh, so to tell you folks why it makes sense, we'll have to know why it started in the first place, right? So like we're gonna go back to 1970s, where software industry really didn't start like it wasn't really the way it is right now, and there weren't really actual programmers per se. There were there were electrical engineers and electronics engineers, right, who did programming for the systems that they built, and those were the programmers. So and there were pretty much like 50 programmers in like maybe a country, like at most, right? So like if I wrote something, I shared it with someone I knew so that they could benefit from it. So that was a culture that was that existed from the beginning of the the act of creating and writing software. And then the corporate entities came in, and they started selling these things, and at some point it wasn't okay, it wasn't fine to like share software, right? People people wanted you to use software the way someone else intended it to. So at MIT, right, there was a printer. So the printer had this thing. So essentially every department had one computer system that people logged into through a console, and every department probably had one printer too. So I sent whatever I want to get printed via mail to the printer. I know that doesn't make sense for us, most of us right now. This is how it used to work. But I sent a mail with the documents that needs to be printed to the printer, and when it's printed, the printer sends me a mail back that your batch has been printed, and I go and pick it up, right? And it's as simple as that. And once in a while, when the printer gets jammed, uh, the printer sends me a message that I'm printing your stuff, but the paper is jammed, come fix it. So like whoever stuff is getting printed, he goes, fixes the printer, and everyone's happy, everyone gets their printouts in the right time. But then they bought a new printer from a company, and the printer did not have this feature, but the printer still got paper jamming issues. The printer still had its own quirks. So essentially what happened is that whenever the paper got jammed, nobody came to know about it, and literally everyone got these giant delays in getting their stuff printed. So these people are hackers, right? So hackers in the sense, not people who screw around with your stuff, but like people who make their own things. people who are interested in building things, people who like making things, that sort of thing. So those people, so essentially, most people there were those kind of people, including this person called Richard Stallman, whom you may have heard of. So they contacted the company saying that we will build this feature for you, right? You can sell it, we don't care, but we need this feature, and if without this, like we are seriously, it's affecting our productivity. So essentially, we'll build this for you for free. You just have to give us a source code. And the company refused because the company felt that it would affect their business, that these people take advantage of them and that sort of thing. And essentially, even though these people did, and these people had no intention of making a business, running a business, because they were all researchers and that sort of thing. So so essentially, what happened was that Richard Stallman basically felt that this wasn't right? Because if it was a car, right? If it was a car, nobody would stop me from repairing or making changes to my car. Nobody would, nobody will literally say me you cannot do this or you can go there. But then why is there a difference when it comes to software? So he felt this was not right, and he felt that if this goes on, I have no idea what I am running on my computers, because my computers have everything from my very personal information to maybe even information that I don't want others to know, right? So essentially, all these things are there in my system, and how can I let something that I don't know about, like I don't know what the software will do. Maybe it will send, maybe it will send all my data to someone I don't know. Maybe the government will snoop on me, but I won't know what is happening under the hood unless I know what it is running, what the source code is. So he felt that even from a perspective of even from a futuristic perspective, this move for software did not make proper sense, as in it wouldn't end up in the betterment of for the society, right? And that is when he started the free software movement, so that people can have their freedom back from the people from the companies that control the people through the software they make, right? So that is the idea that gave birth to free software movement. So from there, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. So from there, we yeah. So from there, let's just quickly go over the definitions, right? So the definition. So this is simple. I'll just run down these. So for a software to be free software, you should be able to run the program as you wish, because like if you own a car, you should be able to take it anywhere you want. Simple. It's the freedom to study the program, how it works, change it, so that it does your computing as you wish. So basically, if it was a car, the right to like open the bonnet and see whether everything is working, maybe learn something about it, fix something. Basically, same idea, except in software. Then access to source code, precondition. Access to source code is a precondition first, but this third, which is freedom to, the freedom to redistribute copies so that you help others. So essentially, if we are talking from the scenario of a car again, if you found something wrong with your car and if your friends are facing the same issue, essentially tell the person, and if you figure out how to fix that issue, you should be able to tell the person, hey, you can do this and you can fix that issue, right? And the last freedom is the freedom to distribute the copies of your modified versions to others. By doing so, you can give the whole community a chance to benefit from it. So the last freedom came into play when companies started, companies like you cannot read this. So there's a difference between source code and actual software that you run. So the software that actually you run is the binaries, and source code is the code, right? There's a difference between that. So sometimes companies will prevent you from distributing the binaries, and that is difficult, because like, see, my mom may not be able to compile a software from scratch, and it might be almost like, or it might be sometimes it may not be possible for me to get her system near me and compile something for her so that she can run it properly. She can run a fix. She can run the software properly. So it is important for me. So it's important for me. So it's important for me that we should be able to compile it in our system and share the binary, so that people who are not technical, basically people who are not are not used to compiling stuff, and people who are just general general people of from general population can run proper software, even if they are not, technically, like in the sense, people should be able to have the freedom even if they are not programmers, right? This is not just for programmers, this is not just for technical people, it's for everyone, right? So that is the, so that's the point. So again, so you might think that, with all these big ideals in mind, right? It's like, it's like you should do this, you can't do that, you should be able to give up the source code. It seems unlikely that this idea would succeed in the first place, because like obviously companies need profit, and without profit you cannot do anything in the, so that's the idea we're used to. But then free software succeeded, right? And let's see, let's kind of look at why it succeeded in the first place, because like right now today, if I pitch this idea as something new, and if free software did not exist, and if I pitch this idea to someone, everyone would probably laugh me off stage saying that this wouldn't work. There's a way to make money from this. You cannot make money from this. You cannot. People will just take advantage of you, and I probably won't even get this up and running. But this succeeded, right? And I think part of it, like a reason why it succeeded because of the time. Because at that time there were more hackers around the world, people who understand the relevance of this. And right now, a lot of programmers don't even understand the relevance of this. So I think it was also easier to get this up and running back then than it is now. But still, we have more people. So like, even though the proportion, even though the percentage of people who gets a hacker culture and who hackers in the programming community are less, even though the percentage is less, in terms of numbers, we have more people than we used to have, which is why we still have free software projects from like 30-40 years ago still running today. So the reason why like it succeeded is that users, at that point, whether it were companies or actually home users, they cared about their data, right? They cared about their data. And so they cared about their data, and they wanted their company secrets or whatever to stay with them, and they knew they couldn't sort of trust whatever Apple was cooking or whatever Microsoft was trying to sell them. And that sort of like after a certain point, that sort of pushed them to Linux, Linux essentially, and software like Apache and open source, free and open source software. And so, and users, and then came the idea that like there were pieces of software that were so critical that the factor of trust was so important that they be able to trust. So people like NSA, people like other intelligence agencies, where the information is very critical, they didn't want to operate with a black box. So those people, obviously the military, so those people had no choice but to use free and open source software. And those people actually pushed in. They started pouring in their resources, and after a certain time, companies also started seeing the point. Companies were like, their software is able to fix bugs faster than ours ever could. They were able to roll out features that faster than we ever could. And so they figured that there is some merit to this whole approach of software development. And they figured that this software, so using this software was not only, it didn't make sense from a security and trust perspective, it also made sense from the perspective of financial cost. So that is the reason why we ended up using the reason why free software succeeded. Now with something like that, let me just fix the spelling there. So with yeah, so with this whole corporate interest coming into GPL, right? So with this whole corporate interest, they wanted all the benefits of free and open source, free software. Basically, open source didn't exist at that point, right? So it was just free software. So they wanted the all the good parts of free software, but they did not want some of the freedom parts, because they wanted their users to be dependent on them. Like Microsoft and Apple is the best example here. Apple wants you to be dependent on their customer service. Apple wants you to be dependent on their authorized reseller. So they run their business that way. So the same was true in a larger sense back in those days. So they did not want their users to be totally free from them, but they wanted that sort of dependence. But at the same time, they wanted the benefits of the open source development model and the open source software that was available, right? So at that point, they were like, all right, is there a way we can get the benefits without talking about the freedom, and maybe that we try and avoid that to make it more, how do you put it, industry friendly in a way. So that is how actually open source came into place. Open source, even if you look at open source always talks about how it's better code. It always talks about the pragmatic advantages, and it often leaves out the how do you put it, the ethical, you know, uh, factors behind. So that is the reason why companies like open source, and they put it everywhere, including their websites, but they don't really talk about free software, because free software, it is not a matter of just the four freedoms. It is a matter of users having control over the software. Even if you so the funny part is that even if you like abide by four freedoms, right, you can still make a piece of software that is very controlling, and where the user don't have any control over the software. So free software is not just about the four freedoms. It is about giving the control to the users. So this is where so the major issue was, which is still going, is between GPL and permissive license like MIT and stuff. And there was, so I personally prefer GPL, right? I personally prefer GPL because like it provides protection for the software that I write, as in nobody can make something bad out of it and no tell anybody. So we all know about Intel management engines in our computers, which is just in this way of snooping around in our computers. If a computer has an Intel chip from the past 10 years or something, it probably has Intel management engine. So Intel Management Engine is actually made from another a piece of software. It's an operating system called Minix, and Minix is something. So it is actually an open source software. So someone took an open source software and created something so malicious from it. And because it is open source, they don't have to release the source code. If you use a license like GPL, Intel would have, if Minix was licensed using something like GPL, Intel would have been forced to release a source code. Thereby, it would have helped people to get out of their, the whole spying thing. So those are the kind of advantages GPL has. So if you want to know further about GPL, you should probably, there are many videos online. You should probably get to it. I'm not going to get into depth because it's a big subject, right? So moving further on, so free software in real life. So this is a big question now. So I sort of tried to explain to you why it makes sense to have software freedom in life. And now the next question is, can you make a living out of it? So this so when free software and open source came out, when both of those were actually kind of getting popular, Microsoft and a few other companies ran a giant campaign against these, saying that they did not respect developer time, they did not respect developer efforts, so that they are bad. They're bad. People will like legally move against you if you use the software. So for years in the software industry, there was a sort of prejudice against the software, and that is slowly changing nowadays. And we can see, what we see is that the more open source, the more like dependent, and so the more it's not dependent, the more the more a company works with free and open source projects, the faster and the better they get with their products. And it's kind of visible, like we actually have billion-dollar companies that are valued more than $1 billion, that only do free and open source software. So the question of whether you can build a company around this is already answered from those examples. There are companies who are doing very well for making like very large sums just by doing this, just by doing free and open source software. They're doing different variations of it. There's open core, there's proper open source and stuff, but like they're doing a proper variation of this same way of making software. So yes, a company can, you can run a company and make money out of free software, and it's totally possible. And and when it comes to things, right, so if you're someone who works, so if you're someone who makes software for users, there's no trail explanation needed when it comes to that, because like the users pay for stuff, and that's possible. If you are someone who caters to the needs of a company, companies don't care if your software is free software or open source, right? What they care is that what you give them, say if whether it's an office suite or whether it's a 3D graphics program, that it works. That's all companies care. If it makes sense to them financially, and if it makes sense in the sense it does all things they want, they don't care if the software that you're pitching to them is free software or if it's proprietary software. So companies value reliability, and that is all that they matter. So you can cater to the needs of a company, you can do that and still do free and open source software. So that is possible. uh, then
Hey,
so
I just wanted to. Hello.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah. Hey, I'm Emmanuel. Yeah.
sure,
So, I just wanted to tell one thing, like, my experience with Mac, basically. So, thing is
yeah.
that I tried to create a shortcut like LNS, and then
Mm-hmm.
uh, it showed me that I didn't have the rights. So I put the sudo command basically, and so basically sudo is I'm getting the admin rights, right? So
Right.
it should basically run, and it was like you don't have enough rights. I'm like, it is my machine, and I'm the admin, but I didn't have because it's the root directory, and Apple locks the root directory, and you can't access it. Yeah, it's good for a security purpose, but what if I want to? What if I want to hack into it? So
No, like see the fun question that I want to ask you that is like security from whom at that point, right?
normies basically. I mean,
Yeah,
only using
I mean,
word, but yeah.
so yeah, so like you're saying that it makes it normie proof in the sense so
Well,
like I think a normie would not even imagine like opening a terminal to do anything. I think most normies hate terminals. So like like for actual normies, that argument, I don't know, like then maybe there are developers who like maybe do things with the system, tweak around, but obviously when you play around with things get broken. That's the side effect, and you cannot keep protecting your child forever. You'll have to set them free at some point, right? So yeah, I mean, like that's
yeah,
my
yeah.
answer. Yeah.
I completely agree with that point. The thing is that I'm a Linux fan, obviously, but the thing is that like the way by which macOS is architectured, apparently, like when you're opening an application, and so an application can request for the master password, right? So that it can run some scripts
Right,
or it
right,
can install a kernel extension. So
right.
the thing is that, like, if you are a person who are just bought a Mac for using Adobe Suite, and then some application asks for your password, and then you input it, and then if it does something, and then you'll be like, Apple, give me this, give me that, and then yeah, I think that's because of it. I completely hate that, but yeah. So
Yeah, right, sure, sure. Right. So again, now, so the what I was going to talk about is, can an individual? So like we talked whether a company can do this, or can an individual do this? So again, short answer is yes, and I've done it. So like since the starting third year, and I've up until now I've properly worked. I guess I've worked mostly in free and open source, so software companies or projects. I've mostly worked. Most of my work was through Debian, and that's how I did make a living out of that. So it is possible. Even if you don't even work in a company, there are certain projects that will pay you to work for them, basically to contribute to them, not even work. So it is possible, and you can again. So like there were a couple of companies mentioned in the previous slides, and there are other companies who specialize in free and open source software. You can actually try and work for them, and you can work. So apart from actually developing software, you can do provide support, right? So like even though Linus Torvalds makes Linux kernel and the GNU people make the GNU parts and they put together and make an operating system, they don't go ahead and install it for companies, and they don't actually fix companies issues. There are people who do that. There are other companies who do that. Red Hat is a company like that. Red Hat's one product is Red Hat Enterprise Linux, or RHEL. So they basically provide support for GNU Linux. That is how they started, and they are doing a lot of other things right now. So you can actually do that if you have so basically if you live in a town or a place with enough local businesses that have an online presence, and they want to take advantage of the whole like e-marketing or e-commerce thing, right? Basically you can actually like you provide support for them. You can actually help them build their business online, that sort of thing. So you can actually provide. provide support for free and open source software that you did not create. On the other hand, if I try to provide support for Microsoft Windows, right, and if I try to first of all, like a lot of things are, most things are illegal, and other things I probably have to get license from Microsoft. When it comes to free and open source software, none of that is required. It's free and it's open source, so so you don't really have to do anything. You can just start out even right now while you're in college. So that is one another beautiful part of it. Next slide. I'll just go through a few communities that you can you can probably get in touch with to actually get started with this stuff. Free Software Community of India. So this is actually something that I personally volunteer in. So free fsci.in. If you go to their website, you'll see the kind of things that they do. They basically try to host service. So they basically do a lot of activism. They sometimes even lobby against government decisions that undermine people's freedom and privacy, and at the same time they also host services that people can use as alternatives to say things like maybe Twitter or Zoom, Google Meet, that sort of thing. So GitHub, yeah, so they do that, and I sort of volunteer there because I think it's important. It's important, and it sort of resonates with me. Then there's Swandra Malayalam Computing. So Kavi mentioned that she is a part of that, and I think it's a very important effort. I think, like, regardless of whether talking about Swandra Malayalam Computing in English is kind of ironical, but മലയാളത്തിൽ പറയാം. അതായത് നിങ്ങൾക്കിപ്പം മലയാളം സംസാരിക്കാനും എഴുതാനും അറിയാമെങ്കിലും അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അറിയില്ലെങ്കിലും നമ്മുടെ ഭാഷ ഭാവിയിൽ ആഗ്രഹമുള്ള ആർക്കെങ്കിലും എഴുതാനും ഒരു കമ്പ്യൂട്ടർ സിസ്റ്റത്തിൽ എഴുതാനും വായിക്കാനും എഴുതാനും വായിക്കാനും പറ്റുക എന്നുള്ളത് ഒരു ആവശ്യം തന്നെയാണ്. കാരണം ഭാവിയിൽ നമ്മളെല്ലാവരും കമ്പ്യൂട്ടറുകളാണ് ഭാവി എന്ന് നമ്മൾ ഉറച്ചു വിശ്വസിക്കുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നമ്മുടെ ഭാഷ അവിടെ ഒരു ഫസ്റ്റ് സിറ്റിസൺ ആയിരിക്കണം എന്നുള്ളത് നമ്മുടെ ആവശ്യമാണ്. അപ്പൊ സ്വതന്ത്ര മലയാളം കമ്പ്യൂട്ടിങ്ങിന്റെ റെലവൻസ് അവിടെയാണ്. അപ്പം അത് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് എന്താ പറയാ, സോ അത് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ് ആണ് തോന്നുവാണെങ്കിൽ അത് ആ ഒരു ആശയത്തോടെ നിങ്ങൾ യോജിക്കുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ സ്വതന്ത്ര മലയാളം കമ്പ്യൂട്ടിംഗ് പോലുള്ള ഒരു പ്രൊജക്റ്റിൽ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഒരുപാട് കാര്യങ്ങൾ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും. പിന്നെ സ്റ്റുഡന്റ് ഡെവലപ്പർ സൊസൈറ്റി എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഞാൻ ചെറുതായിട്ട് നടത്തുന്ന ഒരു സംഭവമാണ്. ഞാനും കുറെ പേരുണ്ട്. അപ്പം ഞങ്ങൾ ബേസിക്കലി ചെയ്യുന്നത് എന്താണെന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് താല്പര്യമുള്ള കുറച്ച് പ്രോബ്ലംസ് ഉണ്ട്. അത് ഞങ്ങൾ ഞങ്ങളുടേതായ രീതിയിൽ സോൾവ് ചെയ്യാൻ ശ്രമിക്കുക. അങ്ങനെയാണ് എനിക്ക് ഏറ്റവും ലളിതമായിട്ട് പറയാൻ അറിയാവുന്നത്. നമ്മൾ ലോക്കൽ കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റിയിൽ നിന്ന് ഇപ്പം ചിലപ്പോഴൊക്കെ സോഫ്റ്റ്വെയർ ഉണ്ടാക്കി കൊടുക്കും. നമ്മൾ കൂടുതൽ ആൾക്കാരെയും കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റീസിനെയും സ്റ്റുഡൻസിനെയും എംപവർ ചെയ്യുക എന്നുള്ളതാണ് നമ്മുടെ ലക്ഷ്യം. അപ്പം നമ്മളിങ്ങനെ ഒരുപാട് ഇവന്റ്സ് ഒക്കെ അതിന്റെ ഭാഗമായിട്ട് കണ്ടക്ട് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഈയിടെയായിട്ട് ഇവന്റ്സുകൾ കുറവാണ്, എങ്കിലും കൂടുതലും എന്താ പറയാ നമ്മുടേതായിട്ടുള്ളൊരു വർക്കിലൂടെയാണ്. പിന്നെ ഉള്ളത്, നിങ്ങളിപ്പം ഏത് സംസ്ഥാനത്താണെങ്കിലും അവിടെ ഒരു ലോക്കൽ ലിനക്സ് യൂസേഴ്സ് ഗ്രൂപ്പ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഫ്രീ സോഫ്റ്റ്വെയർ യൂസേഴ്സ് ഗ്രൂപ്പ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ലീബ്ര സോഫ്റ്റ്വെയർ യൂസേഴ്സ് ഗ്രൂപ്പ് ഉണ്ട്. കൊച്ചി ആണെങ്കിലും കോട്ടയം ആണെങ്കിലും പാലക്കാട് ആണെങ്കിലും ട്രിവാൻഡ്രം ആണെങ്കിലും എല്ലായിടത്തും ഉണ്ട്. അപ്പൊ ആ ലോക്കൽ ഗ്രൂപ്പ്സ് ട്രൈ ടു ഗെറ്റ് ഇൻ ടച്ച് വിത്ത് ദം ആൻഡ് ദേ കൻ പ്രോബ്ലി ഹെൽപ്പ് യു എ ലോട്ട്. അപ്പം ഈ പല കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റീസ് 10-50 വർഷം പഴക്കമുള്ള കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റീസ് ആണ്. അപ്പം ട്രൈ ടു ഗെറ്റ് ഇൻ ടച്ച് വിത്ത് ദം. സോ that's basically it. Get in touch with me, I guess, if you would like to discuss any of this in more detail. But this is how you contact me. This is how you get in touch with me. And apart from that, yeah. So if you have any more questions, please ask away.
Thank you for that session, Abraham. It was indeed insightful.
Yep.
If you have any questions for Abraham, please do ask in the group chat.
ഒന്നല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞത് മൊത്തം നിങ്ങൾക്ക് മനസ്സിലായി, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞ ഒന്നും നിങ്ങൾക്ക് മനസ്സിലായിട്ടില്ല.
I guess the first one.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. If anything, try to use free and open source software, right? അതാണ് ഏറ്റവും important. Like, even as programmers, even as technical folks, like it is important that we know what we want. നമ്മളിപ്പം വിൻഡോസും എന്താ പറയുക ഇപ്പം മാക്OS ആണെങ്കിലും നമ്മൾ ഉപയോഗിക്കുമ്പം നമ്മൾ ശരിക്കും പറഞ്ഞാൽ മൈക്രോസോഫ്റ്റും ആപ്പിളും ഇന്റന്റ് ചെയ്ത രീതിയിലാണ് നമ്മൾ അതെല്ലാം ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്നത്. ഇപ്പം ആൻഡ്രോയിഡ് ആണെങ്കിൽ പോലും ഒരു പരിധി വരെ നമുക്ക് എന്ത് വേണം, നമ്മളുടെ ഒരു പ്രിഫറൻസ് എന്താണെന്ന് പല ആൾക്കാരും അറിയുന്നില്ല എന്നുള്ളതാണ് എനിക്ക് ഏറ്റവും വിഷമമായിട്ടുള്ള പല കാര്യം. ഇപ്പം നമ്മളുടെ ഒരു ഇൻഡിവിജ്വാലിറ്റി നമ്മൾ കണ്ടുപിടിക്കുന്നില്ല. അപ്പം നിങ്ങൾ ഈ ലൈക് ലിനക്സോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു ഫ്രീ ആൻഡ് ഓപ്പൺ സോഴ്സ് സോഫ്റ്റ്വെയർ, ഒരു ഓപ്പറേറ്റിംഗ് സിസ്റ്റം സോഫ്റ്റ്വെയർ ഉപയോഗിക്കുമ്പോഴേ ലൈക്ക് നിങ്ങൾ ആരാ, നിങ്ങളുടെ ഒരു ഐഡന്റിറ്റി ഇതിനകത്ത് കണ്ടുപിടിക്കാൻ പറ്റത്തുള്ളൂ. വോൺസ് യു എക്സ്പീരിയൻസ് that you really can't go back. I mean, that's from my experience at least.
So if there are no more questions, I guess Hannah, we can move on.
I think Alvin wanted to ask some. He had asked.
Yeah, Alvin, go on, please.
കേൾക്കാമല്ലോ?
കേൾക്കാം പറഞ്ഞു.
ഹായ്. സോ എനിക്ക് ഡൗട്ട് ഉണ്ട്. ഇറ്റ്സ് ലൈക്ക് നമ്മൾ മെയിൻ ആയിട്ട് ഇപ്പോൾ മൈക്രോസോഫ്റ്റ്, മാക്, ആപ്പിളിന്റെ അത് പറഞ്ഞല്ലോ. അപ്പൊ ലൈക്ക് ഇപ്പൊ ആൻഡ്രോയിഡിനെ പറ്റി പറയാന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ലൈക്ക് ഞാൻ ഇച്ചിരി വായിച്ചിട്ട് മനസ്സിലായെന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ ഈവൻ ദോ ലൈക്ക് ആൻഡ്രോയിഡ് ബേസിക്കലി ഓപ്പൺ സോഴ്സ് പ്രൊജക്ട് ആണെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിലും നമ്മൾ എല്ലാ ഫോണും എല്ലാം വാങ്ങിക്കുമ്പോൾ ബേസിക്കലി മൊത്തം ഗൂഗിളിന്റെ ആണ് മെജോറിറ്റി എന്നുള്ള പോലെ. സോ ബാക്ക്ഗ്രൗണ്ട് ടാസ്ക് നമുക്കറിയത്തില്ല. സോ അങ്ങനെയുള്ള സമയത്തിലേക്ക് എന്തെങ്കിലും അഡ്വൈസ് പോലെ ഉണ്ടോ? ലൈക്ക് ഞാൻ ഇച്ചിരി വായിച്ചപ്പോൾ ബേസിക്കലി എനിക്ക് മനസ്സിലാത്ത പുതിയൊരു OS ഫ്ലാഷ് ചെയ്യുക, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ലിജിയൻ OS അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അങ്ങനെ തന്നെ കണ്ടേ. സോ അപ്പൊ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അങ്ങനെ വരുമ്പോ ഇപ്പൊ ഒരു നോർമൽ ആൾക്കാർ കാണുമ്പോൾ അത് ഭയങ്കര ഒരു കോംപ്ലിക്കേറ്റഡ് പണി പോലെ അല്ലേ? ലൈക്ക് ബൂട്ട് നോട്ട് അൺലോക്ക് ചെയ്യാൻ എങ്ങനെ അറിയത്തില്ല. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ലൈക്ക് ഞാൻ ചെറിയതായിട്ട് കണ്ടിപ്പോ ചെറിയ ആപ്സ് ഒക്കെ ഇപ്പൊ F-Droid അങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ യൂസ് ചെയ്താൽ പോലും ലൈക്ക് മെജോറിറ്റി പോലെ ബാക്ക്ഗ്രൗണ്ടിൽ എന്താ നടക്കുന്നത്, നമ്മുടെ എപ്പോഴും ലൊക്കേഷൻ ഞാൻ വായിച്ചെടുത്തോളം ലൊക്കേഷൻ നമ്മൾ GPS ഓഫ് ചെയ്താൽ പോലും ആക്ച്വലി അവർക്ക് ട്രാക്ക് ചെയ്യാൻ എല്ലാം കിട്ടും അങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ. സോ അങ്ങനെയുള്ള ഫോണിന്റെ കേസിൽ എന്തെങ്കിലും ടിപ്സോ എന്തെങ്കിലും സജഷൻ ഉണ്ടോ?
ഫോണിന്റെ കേസിൽ ഇപ്പം നമുക്ക് എന്താ പറയാ, ഒരു കാര്യം പറയാനുള്ളതെന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ ആരും പറഞ്ഞ വളരെ ശരിയാണെന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ നമുക്ക് അവരുടെ കയ്യിലാണ് കാര്യങ്ങൾ. ലൈക്ക് നമ്മളെ there is not lot we can do like if you're trying to play it by their games, by their rules. So basically അവരുടെ സോഫ്റ്റ്വെയർ ഉപയോഗിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് അവരുടെ ട്രാക്കിംഗ് എന്താ പറയാ ഓഫ് ചെയ്യാനോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അവരുടെ ട്രാക്കിങ്ങിനെ ബൈപ്പാസ് ചെയ്യാനോ നോക്കിയാൽ അത് ഭയങ്കര ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടായിരിക്കും. അത് എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ നമുക്ക് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും, F-Droid ഒക്കെ ഉപയോഗിച്ച് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും. F-Droidനകത്ത് ഇപ്പം ടെലിഗ്രാം ഒക്കെ ഉണ്ട്, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ F-Droidനകത്തുള്ള ആപ്സ് എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ they try to ensure that tracking and such things are not actually part of the whole thing. So F-Droid is actually a good step, but I think especially if you are someone who's technically adept or if you are looking to be technically adept, rooting and installing a flash is your best. Flash ROM is your best option. Even in that, ഇപ്പൊ അതിലാണെങ്കിലും നിങ്ങൾ നോക്കുക എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ എല്ലാത്തിനകത്തും എന്താ പറയാ, ചിലതിനകത്ത് they include Google's bits because they don't care about the tracking stuff. They just care about having newer versions and good looks. So try to find a ROM that supports that. And pandate polla nowadays flashing a ROM is like click. Like it's mostly as easy as that. It's getting easier too. So it is not something difficult, and I think it's something anyone here can do. So that on the other side, if you move away from Android, Linux phones വളരെ നന്നായി വരുന്ന സമയമാണ് ഇപ്പം. ലിനക്സ് ഫോൺസ് പയ്യെ കയറി വരികയാണ്. ഇപ്പം നമുക്ക് അറ്റ്ലീസ്റ്റ് 3 ഫോൺസ് ഇൻ പ്രൊഡക്ഷൻ ഉണ്ട്. അപ്പം in 5 years, I'm hopeful that they will get better. People are actually using it, which is a good step. Like it's usable. I mean, and there's always a question of like we always know, because like at the end of the day, it's a processor and some RAM and like an operating system on top. So there was never a question of whether you can use Linux on the operating system, but there was always a question of how usable it is. So there are people who are actually using these phones in real life. So we know that it's usable, but like we try to make the experience more wholesome, and I think that we'll get there within a few years. And at that point, you can totally just buy a Linux phone and use that instead of Android. So we're getting there. And if you're really interested, if you really care about this stuff, you can totally try volunteering for these efforts in terms of code or whether it's other things, right? So if you really care about, try contributing to these projects. So like do it all. Like I kind of like the whole DIY thing, like do it yourself kind of thing, right? Whether it comes to software or whether it comes to other things in life. So if there's something that you genuinely care about, try spending your time on it so that you can make, you can help make the world a better place. So yeah.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, thank you. Also, like just one more thing. Like our
Yeah,
presentation, like it was written in Markdown, right? I think it's presentation.
it's on Markdown. So let me present my screen again. Right. So right. So what you're actually seeing is Emacs. This is Emacs. This is a text editor, and basically I've written this in org mode. And org mode is like Markdown, but it is not Markdown, and you can basically do a lot of cool things with it. I can basically so like I can export. So ഞാനിപ്പം basically ചെയ്യുന്ന tree slide എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞൊരു package ഉണ്ട് Emacs. So like I basically turned that on. I basically turned that on, and I get this, right? So that is basically it. But at the same time, I can, if I remember the keys correctly, I can export it to various other formats like Markdown. Wait a second, I forgot the key bindings. So Markdown and like other stuff. Basically, even presentations, even web pages. So that is what I use because it's just easier. Text is just easier to work with than mouse and click and drag, I guess.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
everyone. Thank you.
Yep.
Does anyone have any notes?
Buy a Linux phone just to compile Gentoo. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if you're into that, sure, why not? All right. I guess that's it.
Hello.
Yeah. Please.
I just have one more question. Like, how do you think, FOSS or be more specific, free software sits with the current economic system?
So, like, you asked me, would free software work in the current economic system?
Not would it work, but rather how would it work? Because
How would it work? Right. So,
like, people.
yeah. So,
I
the basic.
mean, I'm just like, sorry, please.
Yeah. So what is the like existing paradigm, right? So the existing paradigm is that I build a chair, I sell the chair. I build two chairs, I sell two chairs, because the amount of time and the material cost that is required to building two chairs, like each chair is the same, right? But that's not true for software, because once I build a piece of software, to make 100 or even thousands or million copies of it, it's just a click of a button. So like that cost doesn't translate well, right? And so this was sort of challenged in the beginning of the software industry, and even today it is. So which is why like service and like software as a service, basically software platforms as a service, that they came into play. So uh, the thing is that like so that is what that so it is because we think inside that box that we sort of feel that this sort of doesn't work at times. But I think each company needs to figure out, will need to spend time figuring out their own business model based on what they want to sell and what they want to, what their product is, basically. So like so I'll put in examples, right? So what does Red Hat do? Red Hat is proper open source. I mean, they prefer to call it open source, so I'm going to say open source. Red Hat's stuff is basically all open source, right? There is not a bit of code that you cannot like see and get into on your own. But their customers are basically a lot of corporates and maybe large organizations, basically profit and non-profit, who doesn't really want to have the pain of configuring Linux systems or worrying about like load managing and that sort of stuff. So they target these people, and they make them pay for the support. And they're so it's like you can have the cake and you can eat it too, right? You can make your thing entirely free and open source, At the same time, you can make a lot of money out of it too, like Red Hat did. Eventually, they are, I guess, about five. I know how many billion, but like a couple of $1 billion worth at this point. That is one, right? Right, you can make them pay for the support. That is one common way to do this. Another one is GitLab. What GitLab does is something called an open core model, in the sense which I think GitLab does it well. There are some other companies who make open core in a very weird way, in the sense what GitLab does is that GitLab's features that are aimed at developers will remain free and open source forever, right? And you can always use it like on your own. Like you can host an instance, like we like FSCI host their own GitLab instance, so you can do that, right? But on the other hand, if there is a feature that's aimed more at managers, non-technical, like business folks, basically like business features, as they say it, those features are proprietary, in the sense you can read their code, but you cannot modify it, you cannot fork it, that sort of thing. So that is their open core model, in the sense the core is actually free and open source software. It's actually good software. It's actually very useful software, and it is actually a standalone product on its own. And there is this additional features that that are proprietary that you can add to it, which is fine. And but there are other people who do open core in a weird way, in the sense the core is free and open source software, but it's not usable. It's not a standalone product. It's just a core. And at that point, you cannot use that software without using the proprietary bit side. That sort of open core is kind of not the right way to go with it. So these are essentially the two giant paradigms in the free and open source world at the point. Even like I guess like so like even with free software, there's which your specific question was specific to free software. And, this applies to free software as well. In fact, I think the CEO of GitLab does like talk about this in one of his video like interviews. You should probably listen to that on YouTube. It's actually pretty good. And yeah, so like that is how you do that. And at the end of the day, like like each business is unique, and you might feel that even in proprietary companies that everyone does the same thing, everyone like in terms of sales and sales policies, but it's very nuanced. It's not like one size fits all, right? So you have to figure out depending on your product and how you want to run your company, basically. Yeah.
So anyone have any more questions? I guess no.
I want one thing.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I want to ask one thing. The thing is that,
Yeah,
like,
sure.
how much should a person be exposed to Linux? Like, basically, the thing is that, like, okay, now, like, for example, a normal person who is non-tech or something like that, right? Now they're trying Linux, right? Now, how much should they be exposed with it? Like, should they be limited to Mint or something and just stay with it, or like should they try to go deeper or something? And the only thing is that what I find is that like if I'm installing Mint for like my relatives and family friends, they basically
Yeah.
can use Mint. Okay, like
Yeah.
the thing is that they mostly use browser, and browser is common in every operating system, right? But should I try to tell them to dig deeper into it? Like, is that worth it, basically? And have you tried with someone like that, basically?
Yeah. So basically, all right. I'll begin. So there's a concept, all right. There's a concept like ever since free software was created, we knew that not everyone was going to be interested in typing stuff into a terminal, or basically understanding what HTTPS request is and how that is used to share their data. We knew that. So free software is not just about each individual actually like being a computer whiz, but it's also about me, if I'm not a technical person, me like using taking control of myself through others, right? My parents doesn't need to know about any of this, right? My parents can live their normal life, but they can exercise their freedom through me, which is a person who is actually technically adept. Same goes for your family, same goes for every people in your community, right? So like if a school wants to like have a better solution for to help their children like take online classes, basically like the school management or the principal doesn't need to start learning systems administration right away, right? If you are someone who can help them with that, you probably should, and at that point they are exercising their freedom through you. So that is one part of the idea. The other part is that I think I don't think you should so there is so I think an operating system is a tool at the end of the day, and you should use it to the you should definitely try to understand what your operating system is doing, basically, otherwise there's no otherwise, you're at the end of the day, you are again engaging with a black box. As a technical people, at least, because like I sort of see people who are technical, people who are regardless of whether you're an engineering student or not, people who are actually technically adept kind of different from people who don't want to be or choose not to be technically adept, because that is a valid choice too. But like choosing to be technically adept puts a little more responsibility on your shoulders, in my opinion. So we are kind of different in that way. But what I'm trying to put here is that you should try to understand what your operating system does. Sorry about that. What your operating system does, but how deep you go into a particular piece of software, whether it's Linux or whether it's any piece of software, depends on, like, that's your personal choice, man. Like, I mean, I've gone very deep into Linux because I like operating systems. I like programming languages. If you don't enjoy that thing, you definitely don't have to. You don't have to install Arch Linux. Even if you're like a really good programmer, you can just stick with Debian or Ubuntu, and that's totally fine. But it's kind of important that you know what you're doing. Like, it's just not just like doing something because like you've always been told that's the way it should be done. So there should be a certain kind of awareness of what you're doing and why you're doing it, but you really don't have to go really deep if you don't want to. That's totally optional.
Cool. All right.
And I think I would actually suggest, like, so what has happened is that like in colleges, right? There's always this like very like very how do I put it, very graybeardy kind of person, not graybeard, so someone who is very technically adept, someone who is really hackery, someone who really tinkers around with everything, and that kind of the passion of that person actually influences other people to try these things. And what happens is that this dude or girl who is probably very into this thing, they probably push the software they use, which is probably like Arch Linux or maybe a window manager, to other students, and they probably think, oh, this is what I should be doing, and they get into that too. And after a while they go back to Windows and like maybe Mac OS, and they think, oh, this is so much easier, because they did not actually, because the matter of fact is that they would actually rather maybe do something else than configure their system 24 hours a day. So for those people, just ask them to use GNOME or KDE, because that's all they need. There's no, if you don't want, there's no if you do not want it, there's not much advantage in like simply using something for the sake of using it. If you don't enjoy it, there's not really much point. So if you're not someone who really, if you're someone who really just wants things to work, but at the same time you care about your freedom and you care about your privacy, just use GNOME or KDE. That's fine too. Yeah. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, I guess there are no more questions.
Thank you, Abraham. Thank you so much. So I'll take over from here.
Yes. Thanks, Arun, for this
You must
opportunity.
have,
Yeah.
by now, you must have understood what courses and what Awesome plans to do. We have some awesome events coming up soon, so stay tuned for that.
And to be a part of these exciting events, make sure you fill out the form that's in the chat right now. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a nice evening ahead. Before leaving, don't forget to fill out the form.
Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.